Welcome back to Cutscene Confidential.
Welcome to the very third episode of Cutscene Confidential. I'm joined by the lead developer of SpaceCorp 2025 through to 2300 AD, made by Logic Interactive. Michael, how you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm just really enjoying the nice weather up here in Oregon. We finally had some sun peak out for June after just a lot of May gray and June gloom.
Nice.
Yeah, so SpaceCorp. I've never heard of this before you and I spoke. What is SpaceCorp? Like, where does that come from? Clearly a board game, but tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on here and letting me talk about it. Space Corp, the video game, is based on a board game released by GMT Games and designed by John Butterfield in 2018. And it's a strategy board game playable by up to four players, and it covers mankind's first steps into space.
Okay, and so we're in the year 2025 now. Do you think we'll be hitting moon bases and Mars bases anytime soon?
Well, it's so funny that that wasn't intended that we release this game on the same date as the board game's title, but it kind of does fit. So the game starts out with mankind has sent probes. We know what's in the solar system. We've seen the planets, and we really are just starting to put satellites in space and possibly establish some better footholds. So I think we really are right at the spot that the board game begins and the video game starts.
Do you think it's kind of like our own world will reflect the game, where it's kind of like this start into the moon and Mars, and then it's just this jump out into the Jovians and out beyond into all the solar systems around us?
Yeah, it really does start like our perspective as watching the space program, evolve from the 1950s. I feel like this game really captures that really well. So at the beginning of the game, we really are where we are now, like worldwide. We've just sent some satellites out. We have an international space station. We're just kind of beginning space travel. So we're starting right from here. And so you really kind of can role play mankind, like jumping out to the moon. We're trying hard just to explore the moon, discover what's on there, put satellites in Lagrange points, which are represented in the game, which we've actually already done. So, these are real things.
What's a Lagrange point?
Lagrange point is a point in space where gravity between the various bodies is such that objects in those points stay in one place and
Oh,
are
wow.
easy to put in orbit. So, like the James Webb Telescope is out, I think at Lagrange point two. I'd have to confirm that, but there are places where we can drop satellites, and just the pull of the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun is about equal. And so the satellite will just stay where we put it, and it'll stay there indefinitely, probably with slight modifications, a couple little thruster pushes here and there. But they're really good points for putting bases and satellites and telescopes.
And so then beyond that, once you get to Mars and you're going out into the Jovians, like how did you kind of move through each three eras? Like, what do you think of those?
So Space Corp does take place in three eras, and the first era, you're really just trying to get to Mars. You're looking at little comets that come by, kind of like what we've just done recently. We sent a mission out to, I think it was asteroid Bennu. We sent a satellite there and a probe, and we brought a sample back to Earth. So we're really at that period, and we're just trying to get out to Mars and land some rovers on there and see what's there. And so that's era one. Era two of the game starts to get a little more sci-fi, but then we start exploring deeper into the solar system. We'll be exploring Saturn, Jupiter, all of the moons, Uranus, Neptune, the asteroid belt series, which was also covered in The Expanse. This game really has a lot of fun in it for people who are fans of The Expanse, because they had bases and homes on some of these asteroid belt objects.
It's definitely, I feel like SpaceCorp, it wears its influence on its sleeve. I see a whole lot in there. Like, to me, it reminds me of Star Trek, but I also see some cyberpunk, a little bit in there with all the corporation themes. And then it also reminds me of, if you ever played the game Subnautica, there's a space corporation in there that's like settling like outside of the Andromeda galaxy, even. So it's who knows how many thousands away from us. But how did you get into Space Corp? Like, when did you first play it?
I played it right when it came out because I saw the news about it probably in 2016, and that's just my favorite theme. I love playing space games and especially games that are hard science. So I love tinkering with technology and kind of getting the feel of the challenges of launching into space. There's another game that really inspired me also named Leaving Earth. That's a board game that hopefully will someday be a video game. But that one similarly has you calculating rocket thrusts and getting out to the moon is challenging and just discovering what's on the solar system. So games like Kerbal Space Program, that has a similar thing. That one's far more sci-fi than this
Definitely.
game, but just the fun of just feeling like you're exploring for the first time and taking first steps. I always like that. So when Space Corp was announced, I followed it closely. Space Corp also, as a board game, has a really cool solitaire mode. So you can play with up to three other players, but there's also a mode where you can play against the game itself. They call it the competition AI. It's kind of like an automa and it's pre-programmed. It's not an AI, but it has preset moves it does. And so your goal is to try to outwit it and figure out if you can, score faster than it can score. So that's always high on my priority list when I'm buying board games is if can I play it when there's no one else around? Video games certainly address that issue all the time. So it was high on my list. I do like the theme.
And so, what made you decide, like, hey, I want to translate this to a video game?
I think mostly because I love the game so much. Everybody I originally played it with and has taught says it's the favorite of their space games that I have, and I have a decent selection. And so I think I wanted it to go to a broader audience, people that don't know the game exists. There's still a lot of people who don't really know what kind of board games are out there and some of the complexities that are in them. So I wanted to kind of spread awareness and, bring this game to more people because I'm such a big fan.
Definitely. I'll say this, like, I've had a hard time putting it down. It definitely feels addictive. Like, oh, I just want to play another game, especially with, I guess, kind of how random it is. I don't know how it works in necessarily the board game, but getting those tiles back and then having to kind of transfer your strategy based on what tiles getting flipped over for certain planets.
You do have to adjust your strategy based on what you discover on the planets. It's not 100% reliable, but you do kind of learn what tiles are out there. So you will eventually have some strategies to handle the different things that are thrown your way.
What you told me about kind of, what to focus on in each era was very helpful because by the third era, I was just getting my ass kicked by the AI. Like even on easy, it took my lunch money. It was so hard, but because there was so much kind of to account for, and the strategy games that I've mainly played, like turn-based tactical, like XCOM, there's only so many variables there, but there's so many things to kind of think about in Space Court.
The game really does change a lot between the three eras. So, in the first era, you're just trying to get some points, you're trying to get bases and just trying to get your technology going, build up your corporation's infrastructure. But by era two, you're trying to produce and bring some of those riches back to Earth, and you're trying to start developing new technologies and do DNA research, try to push the human genome a little bit further, but it changes a lot from era one. And then when you get to era three, some people don't like it that it changes so drastically between era two and era three, but I kind of feel like each era is a separate challenge and
Yeah.
that keeps it fresh. So era three, you're trying to reach other stars. You're
Hmm.
trying to form colonies, which you haven't done before, and they're hard to do sometimes. Just getting the necessary resources in place. So I think, each era has its own charms.
Yeah, I definitely like how I feel like I've gotten the grass down mainly on Era 1. That one has started to make the most sense to me. But I just, in my current playthrough, I'm about halfway through Era 2, and I was able to unlock two different genome upgrades. I think one of
Yeah, they're called
them,
adaptations.
adaptations, thank you,
Right.
which I think is so cool. It just blends so many different ideas and themes from all these different science fiction concepts, and I just think that's so interesting.
Yeah, and some of them are very plausible, developing lighter weight bodies that can survive in space a little bit further. These are things that, even they covered in the expanse, and you're learning how to build faster and take advantage of what's out there.
I've never seen The Expanse before. What's it about? It sounds like it's much more hard science than your Star Wars Mandalorian type show.
Oh yeah, it's definitely hard science. It's a really neat, plausible look into how society might expand into the solar system, some of the conflicts that might arise, how resources are sent between the various entities in the solar system. So in the expanse, you have people that are mining the asteroid belts and sending minerals home. You also have people that are out there just looking for water on asteroids, and their jobs are mining asteroids. And then you have people on Earth that are sitting comfortably at home that don't have to face these challenges. So eventually, there's kind of a dichotomy in society between in what they call the belters in the expanse and the people that live at home. The belters eventually can't really return to Earth very easily because their bodies are too frail. After a
Wow.
couple generations, they can't handle Earth's gravity. So if they visit Earth, it has to be for just a small amount of time. And then you have a faction that is on Mars. And Mars, they become really secretive and kind of militaristic. And so you have these really cool political struggles. And you could totally see it going that way for the next 500 years for us.
Definitely. That's one thing I've kind of pondered about is because in so many different settings, like I think of Cowboy Bebop or in Halo, like the earlier lore of how the humanity broke out into the colonies. Like, I'm very curious to see what will happen, if that'll happen in our lifetime, a first moon base and Mars base.
I feel like it's going to happen. I don't know if we're going to be at the expanse version of it. That may be a couple hundred years, but I feel like we're going to have a base. Once you get a base out there and once you get it functioning, so many more things are possible. And even if you can build space stations at Lagrange points and get people to and from, because then you don't have to deal with the gravity of the Earth. You can start building bigger things. We can't build very big things right now on Earth and send them up there.
Right.
So once we can establish some reliable ways to have bases up there, I think we'll get a lot, things will speed up.
And that's one thing that I think is really cool about SpaceCorp is you end up having to sometimes sacrifice your team to make a colony. Like that's just it's a gambit that has not paid off for me yet. I haven't done it at the right times, I don't think, but it's just super cool.
Well, they're not dead. They're colonizing.
Exactly.
You don't have to feel too guilty about it, but yeah, it is hard to give up scientists and people that are moving around. You don't have an endless amount, so you have to pick your spots carefully.
So what's kind of your strategy like throughout the eras?
So I already mentioned kind of era one. You're really just trying to not fall behind in points. You're trying to get a base that you can use in the second era for production and setting minerals home. I'm always trying to get closer to adaptations as soon as I can. Era one ends pretty quickly though, so you're trying to get contracts and stay in the hunt for the lead. So another good thing to do in era one is the first player out to the asteroid belt gets a small advantage in era two. It's not an insurmountable advantage for a player to have. I used to think that it was unbalanced and that whoever got that was going to win era two, but it's not because you don't always start in a very good
Hmm.
spot and you only have limited teams. So anyway, so that's era one. There's mostly trying to beat the contracts and gain those points. But in era two, I'm trying to get as much technology as possible
Hmm.
because I think whoever goes into era three with technology has the best chance of winning it.
Hmm.
There's so many technology cards. I think
And
there's
you're
like
talking about revelations, correct?
we're
Or
talking about breakthrough cards.
hmm.
Revelations are actions you take that lead to the technological breakthroughs, and
Hmm.
then genetics actions that lead to the adaptation cards. So I think you're trying to get as many of those as you can. But even someone who's not exploring that avenue can really push production. If you just mine a bunch of asteroids, you can jump out to a huge lead over somebody that's playing for era three. So I think there's a lot of different ways to approach the game.
Hmm.
So even if I say one way to do it, I think there's a number of viable paths. And
Hmm.
the number of years this game has been played, I think have kind of proven that out. There's definitely a number of viable paths.
Definitely. Like I've noticed that the AI kind of picks. There's different strategies that they each tend to pick. Is that something that you added in?
Yes, so there are seven objectives in the base game that you're going for in each of the different eras, and the AIs kind of they will take their two or three favorite ones, and those are the ones they're going to focus on. So
Mm.
sometimes they'll focus on the same ones, sometimes they'll focus on the ones that you will, but mostly they're going for specific objectives right away. Even more so on medium difficulty. Easy difficulty, they're kind of just trying to see what they can do on that turn. They're not looking too far ahead. But on medium
Hmm.
difficulty, you'll see them definitely aim for those objectives right away.
Hmm.
And they'll give up on an objective if they've determined that it's too hard to achieve now because you jumped ahead
Hmm.
and it really is a race game. If
Yes.
you sum up the game, it really is a race to the objectives. And
Hmm.
if you fall behind by one base and there's an objective of get three bases in a certain spot, you may not be able to catch up. So the AI is always evaluating where it is in that race, and it will leave and go to the next objective if it needs to.
Yes, because when I played, I was like, the first time I played it, I wanted to play on the hardest difficulty, and everything clearly, they were all making their moves with the point, and I was just figuring it out after playing the tutorial. And oh my God, like this one, I think it was like the pink one, and they were able to get the advancement, like the going out beyond the belt, the advancement into era two, and then the advancement again into era three. I was like, I can't compete with these computers, man.
Yeah, you know what though? The the opponent that goes for that particular objective is giving up other points
Hmm.
earlier. So when you get out to those are called the first beyond markers. When you get out
Hmm.
there and take those, you're also losing a team. That team has
Yes.
jettisoned on, they're out into the rest of the solar system. They can't help anymore. So you are giving up some things. So again, it's not, you know, a guarantee that the player that gets there is going to win because you could have if you still have teams that are left behind, they can both still do things in the solar system. And if you leave the solar system too soon, you're losing, it's perfect if you can do it just near the end.
Yes.
But of course, if you wait that long, someone may jump out
Someone,
and get
yeah.
that before you. So it definitely, it's a prisoner's dilemma. Who's going to do it first? Do I try to build one more base before going for it? And if I build the base, did I just miss out on getting it? So,
Yeah, I've made it kind of in Era 1. That's the one I've played the most so far. But I've been able to dial in on, okay, we're going to get that first Martian base. We're going to be the first to produce. And then, yeah, let's try and hope to at least get the second one going out beyond.
for a long time, my strategy was try to get to the moon first and produce on there if I can, especially if I was going first. So you get those time cards where you can double actions,
Yes.
double values. And so if I was going first, I'm going to play my move card. I'm going to double it. I'm going to get to the moon and produce. But then I saw some other strategies where the AIs are going out to Lagrange points, they're building spaceports. Spaceports give you bonus moves,
Yes.
and then you get free transport to spaceports also. And so both of their teams were suddenly at spaceports while I was trying to produce on the moon, which sometimes is it's not 100% that you'll be able to, depends on what you find there. And so, getting to Mars is always a good thing if you can do it because there's a lot of points available there.
And so we were earlier talking about just in our email exchange the music. How did the music get created? Did you compose that? Did you have someone help you?
No, I curated the music from sources on the internet and some composers that I liked. They were all generous in donating their time and effort to putting the music together. They're all real thematic pieces.
Yes, they fit
They're
so
not
perfectly.
they're not meant to be super catchy. Like if you're playing StarCraft or something and that music
Yes.
comes on, and even the old days, like the MIDI music would come on, like you're kind of like bouncing around. So this is designed to be a little bit more in the background and chill.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I like. It fits the theme and it's very ambient at the same time. Like, but it's
Yeah,
not like overbearing. Like, it doesn't. The music doesn't make me want to rush through what I'm like thinking and planning through, which has
right.
helped.
You don't want the tracks to be so noticeable that the fifth time you heard them, by the second time you've played it, that you get bored of them.
Yeah.
But that
So
that's how games like Morrowind and Oblivion and Skyrim always did it. Their tracks were always kind of very ambient in the background and peaceful.
yes, I actually just recently replayed through Skyrim, and I mean the soundtrack on that game just
It
carries that
is
adventure. It's incredible.
it is a great soundtrack. I love finding good music pieces for projects that I work on. So I may even add some more, like if I find some more good ones in there. So
That's
it's
awesome.
it's a fun process.
Yeah, it seems like from the I'll say the outside looking in, game development seems like such a fun process. Can you like elaborate on is it fun or is it more challenging than I would expect?
It is both fun and sometimes it's not fun. If I had to sum it up, I'd say it's fun. It's always been something that I've done. It is really fun to see a creation, come to life, see a prototype start to work. It is not super fun to play the same scene or title 1,000 times. I mean, I played SpaceCorp probably 2 or 3 thousand times in the last 6 months. It's that can become a challenge. It's so you have to put yourself in the mind of a player, when you don't want to. And so you can kind of find some joy in doing that. But I think it's really fun. But the most fun part for me is engaging with players, which doesn't happen until the last steps when you're either beta testing or like what we're doing now, you're starting press or starting to have some previews. Then you finally get to spend time talking to players and see what they like. And so that is the most fun, but it takes a long time to get to.
Yeah, so how long have you been working on Space Court?
This one has been a little over eight months.
Oh wow.
I approached GMT Games and told them I love this game, and I think we have board games which appeal to a certain niche of players. We have a strategy game, a turn-based strategy game, which appeals to a certain niche of players. And then we have a space game, which has sci-fi, which I think appeals to a whole large subset of players. And so I told them I thought this was the perfect game for us to do, and let me put a prototype together and see what we think. And then that took a few months, and then we sat down with GMT Games, who owned the rights to it, and I sat down with the man who designed the game, John Butterfield, who has designed a number of fabulous games in the last decade or two, and they both loved what they saw, so we went with the project.
That's awesome. So you'd been playing or at least following Space Corp for 8 years at that point. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess it's about 8 years old since we started seeing it.
Did you think that you would have eventually made the Space Corp video game way back when?
What's funny is I've been making video games since I was a teenager. And so every single time I play a good board game, I'm like, I want to make this. So I don't want to say that like this was a one-off. Like every time I see a game, I'm thinking this would be so cool to do
Hmm.
as a video game. But Space Corp was one of the few that really stuck out as one that
Hmm.
would still be great. So a lot of board games have mechanics that don't translate really well to video games in terms of a lot of actions that can get interrupted, and I play this and you play this to counter it.
Hmm.
Magic the Gathering has a lot of that also. So if you played MTG Arena, I don't know if you've played it much,
I have a good friend who has.
but there's a lot of you play a card, the other player has to say, I'll allow it. And
Hmm.
then you have to say, I don't want to play any further actions. There's a lot of like pass,
Mm.
pass, pass. And so it works for that game because that game has a long history and players are willing to put up with that, but it doesn't work necessarily for a lot of other games. So if you're dealing with real-time games, players just play and just do their thing.
Hmm.
So turn-based games though are a little bit different in that regard where you don't want your turn to be interrupted too often. So have you played Hearthstone at all?
Yes, my AP computer science teacher in high school actually would stream it while he was like on Twitch, and he would like teach us. He would essentially do after class like office hours while playing Hearthstone. So I got into it through that and played a little bit. I was dog shit, but yes.
I played that one a lot over the years. And one thing that game did was it showed that we could have a collectible trading card game that was complex that didn't need to have interrupts that were always going
Hmm.
back and forth. So in that game, the actions you have that can interrupt each other are played at the end of another player's turn or on your turn, and you'll play a card that says, choose a card that was played the last turn, take it in your hand or something. But you don't have to interrupt the other player's
Hmm.
turn. And so everything is done on your turn. So it's a very smooth and elegant multiplayer feel to it. And so a lot of board games would have to make that kind of change. And there are a lot of board games that would do just fine,
Hmm.
but some are better than others in terms of allowing these kind of threaded actions to go.
Yeah, did SpaceCorp have to make that change? Because I remember like the edge actions and all that.
No, no. So SpaceCorp has a number of those actions, so it's fine as a single player experience. You don't notice the difference. You're still playing those. For multiplayer, we'll have to figure out some creative ways to make it work without, jumping into any making it an unpleasant experience for players.
Is it a 1-to-1 to the board game? Like, are they exact, or is it like very comparable? Like you wouldn't notice anything.
It is 1-to-1.
Oh
There's a
wow.
the a couple of the edge cards, which are the interrupt cards.
Hmm.
In the board game, you could play them in the middle of someone else's turn, but for the most part, what you play is just fine to do at the end of the player's turn. And so there's a few changes in that regard, but for the most part, it's a 1-to-1.
Was it when you first like sat down to make the game? What were you kind of like thinking? What were you having to work through in terms of okay, I need to focus on this first, and then the rest will fall into place.
Well, when you start game dev, the first thing you have to do is just kind of figure out what is the big picture
Hmm.
behind the scenes, what kind of gameplay loop do you have? Do you want players dragging with their mouse a lot, playing with their keyboard more? So you're kind of envisioning how you expect the player to interact. The game, it's not just for Windows, it's also for mobile. So a lot of attention had to be put into a touch interface and being able to play it without hover overs and right click actions.
Hmm.
So you're trying to think about a lot of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'll say I played it on my iPhone, and it was perfect. I was able to understand all the cards, pull something up if I needed it, and just play with zero issue. It was great.
We actually started with the iPhone interface first because that is the smallest one, and it forces you to be very creative in figuring out
Hmm.
how am I going to give the information we need to give to the player without overwhelming them. Sometimes the interface can get crowded, but I feel like after one or two plays, the player is going to really love the interface and the things that you can move out of the way when when you don't need them. You start to figure out like I don't need to see the cards right now, and so you can zoom in and out and just touch things to get information about them. So it's a very smooth interface, but it definitely was smart for us to start with that because there's a lot in the game, and it forced us to really evaluate what needs to stay, what needs to go.
I'll say initially I felt overwhelmed as I do when I start playing any game, but it was felt so intuitive that I can always say, okay, the card offers, they're on the river, I can hide those. There's a button to just see the board game when I need to do anything. Like, oh, I want to team transfer, that just and it highlights everything I need to go to. Like everything just felt so good to play and on my tiny little iPhone. It was nice.
With the availability of adding a big button that says team transport to your spaceports meant that we could get away with a tutorial which was a little bit faster than the 40-page rulebook that you'd have to do if you're playing the board game because it's easy to forget that those things exist, but now we just throw it up to you. And so the tutorial is meant to get you in there and playing quickly. And it's not like every rule is covered in this tutorial. You do have to explore a little bit.
Yes.
You can read the rule book and there's a more elaborate rules section that's going in there by the time this is released. But for the most part, we want players to explore, and they're not going to miss anything by not having read the rules.
Yeah, I felt the tutorial taught me everything I needed to know to like kind of get started playing. When it kind of would say, oh, this thing's important for the next era, I was like, okay, I'll just remember that it said that and then look into that more. It
And the
felt
game
like,
all sorry, go.
continue. No, no.
Oh, I was going to say that the game also throws hints later down in the game as you're playing that kind of suggest other things that happen. So there's the tutorial, and then there's a few hints that you'll get, in each of the first two eras or three eras that will also give you some extra info.
Yes, when my very first game, I noticed like, oh, this person was the first Beyond award. This award is very important going forward. I was like, oh
Yeah.
shit, okay, and that made me pay attention a little bit more to the Beyond points.
Yeah, you know what? In the board game, if you play it, is going to be a 3 to 4 hour experience. It's quite long, so it's a commitment. So you kind of want to get everything right when you're sitting there playing with players. But the video game, you can get through that game in 45 minutes. And so the risk of missing a rule is not quite so painful. You could just start over.
Yeah,
And
it
so
feels
we did try to make it perfect in terms of teaching you every single thing. It's all there, but if you miss something, you'll just start a new game.
yeah. That's what I really appreciated was okay. I can start a new game. It's no big deal that I got wiped in the third era. I can if I want to practice the third era, I could just start from that era, which felt so nice.
Yeah, if sometimes you just want a little quick game, and the board game had rules to start in the different eras, and you start with different cards right out of the gate when you do that. So yeah, if you just want 15 minutes, you can go right to era three and just start there.
What's your favorite era?
I would like to say era two. I feel like that's the meatiest one. I love exploring the solar system. I like getting bases, around Saturn, exploring the asteroids, probably because it's the place that, when you look up in a telescope, you want to go to the most
Yes.
for us. So I would say era two. Era three is really cool, though. I do like putting colonies down.
Yeah, I think for me it's probably a split between one and two because I think the idea of like finally breaking beyond, the moon and going beyond that is so cool, and then finally going out into the Jovians and hanging out around, Saturn and Jupiter and Titan and Enceladus and going out to Pluto. It's so fun.
The game does a really good job of conveying the scale of getting out there. Like in the beginning of the game, you're just spending like just a few movement points to get to the moon, and then by the time you're on Jupiter, and then you're trying to get to Neptune, and you need like 24 points,
Yes.
24 movement points to get there. It really scales. And then, you move to era 3 and you need 80 points to get to some places. It does a good job of scaling the difficulty.
Yeah, like it does each I imagine that it's the case of each era kind of has its own deck of cards. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So they're all different techs. So, by the time you get to the third era, you have antimatter fusion engines and all sorts of cool stuff. And, you're multiplying cards together. So you're making these big plans to go places.
Yeah, I noticed I like all the different art on all the different cards. Although I think I noticed a Reaper from Mass Effect on one of them. Was I correct in seeing that or was that just my
I'd
head?
have to look. All of the art comes from GMT, and they have really good artists, and I believe they commissioned all of their art. But I'll have to look. You'll have to point it out to me
I can't
and
remember
show
what
me
it
which one.
was. I think it was like salvage or something, something about salvage or something like that, but I swear I saw a Reaper in there.
Yeah, they had a team of artists that were putting it all together. So send me later on what the card is, and
Okay,
we'll
yeah.
look at it. And that's funny if that's true.
Yeah, although I am replaying through the Mass Effect trilogy right now, so maybe it's just the Reapers are haunting my dreams again.
That's a good trilogy.
It's so good. This is my second time playing through it, and so I'm platinuming it on PlayStation right now.
That's funny.
Yeah, I gotta ask, who's your favorite companion in Mass Effect?
I haven't played that one.
Oh, you haven't played Mass Effect before?
No,
I feel like you would
no.
like it.
I'm sure I would. I just haven't played it.
Yeah, it's some more hard science and some RPG. Maybe not hard science, more science fiction.
One of my friends has been trying to get me to play it. It's on my list. It's in my Steam wish list.
Yeah, I well, I'll add another recommendation onto your friends. It's so much fun.
Yeah,
What
I know. I want to play it.
what other science fiction games do you like playing?
Galactic Civilizations. I like that one. I played Stellaris for a little while.
I was gonna
That one gets
say,
that one gets a little overwhelming. Sometimes I do just want to have a little tiny little empire and play it in an hour. So I was really hooked for a little while in a game called Slipways. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I've never heard of Subways.
It's described as a 4X space game in 1 hour.
Oh wow.
So it's on Steam. It's really neat. Mostly you're making connections between bases and planets, and you're researching things. There's asteroids. It's really a really clever little game.
Very nice. Like the one I played the most out of the ones you mentioned is Stellaris, but towards the end, like if I accidentally trigger some Lovecraftian horror from space, I'm like, oh, well, great. I guess I gotta figure out how to deal with this now. I don't have time to really pause
Sometimes
on
I
it.
have trouble when I'm committing what could be a 30-hour game or 50-hour game, and I feel like it adds so much weight to like what you feel like you're doing. Like if you don't get off to a good start, you feel like, oh my
Yes.
God, should I just start over now and continue? I don't like that feeling. That is one thing I like better about board games and strategy games is that like they're very self-contained. I have the same trouble when I'm playing Civ 6. Have you played that much?
Yes. Yeah, I've played
Like
Civ
if you
6.
get a bad start on that, you're wondering, am I wasting my time? Should I try to continue to do this? Like when you play on the higher level of difficulties, it
Yes.
can be a huge challenge to overcome a bad start. Or if you get swarmed by barbarians or something, like it's fun to try to beat your way out through them, but like you're probably lost the game
Yeah, like it's really fun kind of trying the long odds. Like have you played XCOM before?
a long time ago. Yeah,
Yeah, the original?
I think it was the original. And I
Yeah.
played the board. I played the board game as well.
Oh wow. Um but it's like it's another example of like if you don't have a good start or have a couple missions that in a row that go terribly, like you can be royally fucked in that game. And that but that's also really fun for me.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, don't hold your hand too much. So, like Oblivion, I think Skyrim does this. They scale the difficulty right away for you. So you're never in too much trouble or you're never going to be too overwhelmed. But I remember the very first one in the series, Morrowind, like if you made a wrong turn, you were just doomed. You're like, you reloaded, you're like, I guess I'm not going there for a long time.
Right.
So, there's something to be said about, allowing a bad start and allowing yourself to make the wrong move. It makes it scarier. Like if you could screw up that early, then it makes the beginning a lot more tense.
Yes, yeah, I feel it's like every decision you make is a choice. Like I think of Fallout New Vegas. Like you can either try and fight your way through the Cazadors and the Death Claws, or go all the way around to New Vegas.
Hmm.
I haven't touched Morrowind yet, and so I imagine the level scaling there is even crazier because it's dice rolls, right? For if you
Well,
hit or
there's no
not.
level scaling in that one,
Oh,
as
there's
far as I
zero. Oh,
remember.
wow.
No, that one was just the
Good
hard
luck.
monsters are here. You're not good enough to go there. Don't go there, but you will because you're grinding up levels and you just want to see what's over the hill. So you'll go over there and then you'll end up running like away from things that chase you.
Yeah, and that's kind of fun too, is like seeing something that just scares you shitless. Like that's what I
Yeah.
liked about Subnautica was I don't want to go
Mhm.
too deep yet because there's huge fishes that can swallow me whole.
Yeah.
So with SpaceCorp, sorry, I'm gonna look at my questions. Where do you think you've met with the creator, correct?
Hmm.
What has he told you about kind of the influences with the SpaceCorp specifically?
I believe the biggest influence was on a book series. I believe it's called the Galactican
The Galactican.
series. I'd have to look at the credits, but I'm gonna look away from the screen here and look at the credits here. Galactician series. Hang on. The Galactician series was the biggest influence for Space Corp, and in that series, I haven't read it. I've read the book jackets on them, but it's kind of like a little bit like The Expanse about corporations that are trying to spread through the solar system and, you know, be the wealthiest corporation.
Do you think it's going to be private enterprise that's spreading throughout our solar system, or do you think it'll be government entities?
Oh man, that's a tough question. I think it's going to be private enterprise at some point.
Yeah, that's what I would hedge my bet on.
Yeah, I think the private entities are the only ones that are going to be able to get the funding they need and do whatever they need to do to get the riches out there. But I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah. It'll just be interesting to watch from the sidelines, I'll say.
Yeah, and so in Space Corp has an expansion, a DLC that's coming out late October.
Ventures. Yeah, I wanted to ask you
Adventures.
about that.
So that one has 14 different corporations, and so you bring that up. They all have their different motives and things that they're trying to do, and I could totally see something like that happening. Having just corporations from around the world with different backings, claiming different parts of the solar system or getting better at one thing than another.
Yeah, like imagine Meta finally going into gene editing or something like that.
Yeah, there's some corporations that just get crazy with the things that they can do in the expansion. It changes the game a lot.
Yeah, I was looking through the Ventures expansion earlier, and it said coming soon, but I was like, oh, it's like I can still click it and select it. Oh, I can launch it, and then it said coming in
Yeah,
October, and I was like, oh man.
it's a teaser there for you, so you could click through and see some of it.
Yeah.
So it actually, we're playing it now. It's playable now, and you really have to change the way you play when you start getting to the expansion. So everything you think you know about how to play the game in the base game, you have to throw away a little bit with the expansion because you get cards differently. There's no time cards. Or actually, I take
Oh.
that back. There's no time cards with the competition AI. I apologize for that. I said that wrong. You may or may not get time cards. Some of the corporations get multiple time cards. Some of them get zero, and they have different advantages. Some of them, there's one that's like a pirate corporation, and so it kicks people out of places real easy. That if you explore somewhere and set a claim down, like you want to build on it really quick because that corporation could come and just steal it from you. So it makes you think twice. Do I explore this moon now, or do I explore this Europa now, or do I have to wait until I have all the build cards I need in my hand, to do it, so I can do it in back-to-back turns as fast as possible. So you get that corporation out there. You have to change the way you're thinking.
What's your favorite one to play as?
There's a corporation, I forget the name, that allows you to jump from site to site, exploring and leaving.
Is that the public transportation one or something transportation? The ones about spaceports. That's the one that grabbed my attention.
I'm gonna have to look real quick, but this one, you you basically explore a site, then pop to the next site. You don't worry about building bases,
You're just focused on exploration and
exploring.
claims,
I
huh?
think it's called, let's see, it's called Discover Prime.
Okay.
They're all about just finding new things. They don't even want to build bases, so they will at some point, but they just want to go and just reap all the new technologies. Because when you discover things, you get bonuses in your genetics and your technology.
Yeah, that's what feels like kind of the dice roll with when you're exploring. Like I could either get a base to produce, or I could end up getting one of the like microbe things.
Most of the bases are good, but there are some negative ones, and that's kind of space. Like I think that's about as real as it's going to get. We don't know what we're going to find. It's already, way beyond normal science when you're finding microbes on Europa.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe we'll find microbes on Europa. I don't know, but you could find all sorts of things. You could find alien artifacts in the game, which of course don't exist. So, that's space. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not going to be.
Like I didn't understand this when in my first game because I was just moving through and not ignoring the radiation penalty. I don't think I realized what was happening. But over time, you can either get that radiation gene or upgrade your infrastructure.
Right.
Like,
Or, sometimes you have to use opponent bases. That's one of the cool things about the game is you don't have to build everything. If an opponent builds in this case a shield factory, you can use their shielding. You pay them for it, but you don't if you have other things you're trying to do, you can borrow from them.
yeah, like, and there was that one. I think it might be an adaptation where you ignore the penalty of using someone else's base or infrastructure. Am I correct?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that one's real nice too. Every single adaptation is very useful. I've used them all in different points. They become even more important for some of the corporations in the expansion, but they're all really well tested. They did a good job at GMT making this and designing it. And it's fun, try different games and try different tech every time. We're going to add some achievements in pretty soon, and so there will definitely be some
Oh,
achievements
very
for different
fun.
technologies.
Yeah, that's what I've really enjoyed about it so far is every decision I make feels so balanced. Like I don't have to I have to worry about the consequences, but nothing's like a true negative if I make this decision.
No, it's not designed to be a super punishing game. You just need to pick some goals and go for them. You get to achieve some things and feel cool. You're like, "Oh, cool, I'm at Halley's Comet," and you get to feel like, that's pretty neat. And so it's no one's gonna get blown up and sent back to Earth.
Do you have a I have to ask though, do you have a favorite celestial body?
I do. It's out of our solar system though.
What is it?
So it'd be the Orion Nebula, and
Is that where the Orion constellation is located?
yeah, it's in one of the stars in there.
Wow.
So Messier 42, that's my favorite one.
Is that a place that you can visit in the third era?
No, it is not. Someday, if we ever get a fourth era, I hope we can do that.
What would a fourth era even be? Galaxies or
Well,
beyond that? Or
I'm not allowed to promise anything, so I'm not going to. But yeah, I would say go out and visit other nebula, star clusters, maybe meet some more alien races and have some trade with them. That
yeah,
would be cool. But that's not in the works right now. John Butterfield, the designer, has a new game coming out called Away Team, which is about exploring other planets, and it's the kind of the next, not a not a pure sequel, maybe a spiritual sequel to this game. And so you're taking your away teams and, having some fun with them. A little more Star Trek themed.
Oh, very cool. That's fun. Um, do you have any other like favorite strategy games that you play?
Oh man. Well, I played Civ 6 for a long time.
Hmm.
So I would say that one, and I'm playing Slay the Spire a ton still. Years later, that one still sits. I do a lot of my gaming on my phone. So
Yeah.
I do a lot more mobile gaming than the average person. So if it has a good mobile port, I'll do it. And Civ 6 had a good mobile port.
Hmm.
So a lot of Slay the Spire on my phone.
Who's your favorite leader to pick in Civ 6?
Oh man, I'm really boring. I always try to do things I know well, so I'm always happy to do Abraham Lincoln or something like that.
Yeah, I liked going with oh my gosh, the German guy back when I played. The Holy Roman Emperor, I think, is what he
Mhm.
was. Yeah. Him and his U-boats.
Yeah, I need to spread out a little bit more. They've added a lot of civs to that game.
Yeah, there's like all the expansions they had. Now they're on Civ 7 or something.
They are on Civ 7. I'm waiting to get that. I'm waiting for it to settle down in terms of bug fixes and
Yeah. I've heard it's a little volatile in terms of the game. Not volatile as in fixes. It's very buggy.
oh, yeah, I can't say for sure. But I do know it changed a lot in terms of how your leaders move between ages. Like in age, I think you pick new leaders in different ages, or you pick new civs like three times during the
Wow.
game or something like that. So, like in the first part of the game, you're the Byzantines, but the next part of the game, you could be the Egyptians or something like
Oh,
that.
okay. So it's
So
not like I'm Teddy Roosevelt all the way back during the Stone
it
Age.
isn't, and that's been pretty jarring for people, from what I understand.
Yeah,
I'm
that
not.
completely changes it. I'm not against that either, but I'm not a Civ master by any stretch.
Yeah, if you, I guess the question is, if you're a first-time player that came to the game, would you enjoy the game? And so sometimes I think players that don't have any preconceptions about how it used to play at Civ 4 or 5 or 6, might enjoy it more.
I also do have to ask, are you blue, yellow, green, or pink? What are you picking?
I'm always blue.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I gotta go with yellow. I don't know, there's something about being big and bright. I feel like it'd have to be easy to find or spot in space.
Space is pretty dark.
Oh yeah. Is there kind of anything that you're still waiting to add in before launch in August, or what else?
Well, like I said, we're adding in achievements.
Hmm.
We're adding in a little bit more rules for people who want to dig into it a little bit more. And we'll do some more graphical updates. Keep looking for new music.
Hmm.
But we're really getting pretty close to focusing on the expansion, though.
Oh, that's awesome. And so, is it the expansion ventures? Is it just those corporations, or does it add anything else in?
So it's 14 corporations, and also, if you, as I mentioned, there's a competition AI, which comes from the solitaire AI from the board game. So it has four opponents that you can pick from to play the competition side of things. So it's going to be those. It also adds in some era special situations that happen every era. So like things that change from era to era, like there's an extra asteroid or something, or
Mm.
you can't upgrade your technology, this era or something like that, which changes what you have to do. Everyone has to face the same penalties sometimes. Then it also adds more contracts.
Oh, very cool.
So there's, I think, 16 new contracts
Oh, like per era or entirely?
total. So in each area, you're going to see one of them.
Oh, very cool. Yeah,
So you'll have 8 contracts instead of 7.
that's one thing I've really enjoyed is the contract system, because especially on those higher difficulties, it feels so competitive just trying to get any of those.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's all about. It really is a race to claim them. And if I think the game plays best with two AI opponents, so 3 player, give you a little bit of room. They don't step on each other's toes as much. It gets a little crowded with 4. Uh,
Hmm.
but they really claim those objectives pretty quickly, at least on medium difficulty. We're still working on hard, but I promise you they'll claim them even more.
Oh, so
They'll
hard's
probably attack you more too.
hard's not even at its hardest state yet, is what I'm
No,
hearing. Oh god.
correct.
I'm gonna get my ass kicked even harder. Well, so for our listeners, when does SpaceCorp 2025 through 2300 AD release? When can they look forward to this masterpiece?
August 21st, 2025, year of the game, apparently.
That's such a crazy coincidence. That has
That
to
is.
be. Was that the goal? Was like we got to get it out.
It was never the goal, but it's just so funny it worked out that way.
Yeah.
I really want more players to play it. I want people who play Stellaris or want to kind of get that strategy fix, but get their sci-fi. It's a peaceful game. You're not attacking. It's really a 3x game. There's not a lot of attacking, and so it's a fun way to just spend a little bit of time, but not have to plan for 30 hours.
Yes, it's very bite-sized almost. Even though the games are like 45 minutes, it definitely feels like, oh, I could just sit down on my couch and enjoy this for a few hours.
And you could certainly play it longer than 45 minutes if you really
definitely.
want to think about it. So that's 45 minutes for me, who's played it 2,000 times. So I think new players will probably play it an hour, hour and a half.
Well, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time and telling us all about SpaceCorp.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much.